Hey everybody, Jimmy with the Triple C Collective here for another Superhero Saturday. Today we're going to be diving into She-Hulk Episode 3, The People versus Emil Blonsky. And let me say, I love this episode. I've really just enjoyed She-Hulk. Like, the style of comedy that you're doing in it is, like, totally up my alley. I'm just, like, loving every little bit of it. The mid-credit, like end credit scene here, I found to be absolutely hilarious. I died. I laughed so hard during it. I thought it was so funny. I really love this show though so far. Like I've really enjoyed it. Um, so yeah, welcome back to episode 3, The People versus Emil Blonsky. This was directed by Kate Caro and written by Francesca Gales and Jacqueline Gales. So without further ado, let's dive in. This episode opens with Jen talking to the Abomination about the video. She is in the prison with him, and it's like, dude, you could have said something to me about this because this unravels just everything you escaped. Like, it's breaking a crime. Your parole is just out the window. Whoo, bad. Adios. And he was like, whoa, I didn't do that like on purpose or anything. Like I was forced against my will to do this by some sorcerer supreme, you former librarian person named Wong. And so like all of that was really funny, but it's all like, I mean, for this point I guess it's all like true, because like we saw that in Shang-Chi, and like up until like She-Hulk here, like obviously seeing him here and seeing at the end of episode 2 where they finally address it, like we didn't know like where any of this was happening or anything like that, what the timeline was. So now we kind of get a little bit of a clearer picture here, and of like where things kind of are in that sense. And so that was cool because like to be fair, like Shang-Chi, I liked it, but I didn't know where it sat necessarily in the timeline of the MCU. It was like clearly post like Endgame, but like you really, at this point we really don't know where like a lot of these stories are always taking place, and like how much other people know of what's going on in the other places short of WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness and their connection. Um, but yeah, anyhow, back to this. We get back to She-Hulk. So then, we get Jen Walters going through like, you ruined the case, like, like this is like this is bad, and he's like, well, find Wong and he'll be able to tell it, and she's like, all right, fine. And then she's driving in her car, and it's another great breaking the fourth wall moment of where she is like, "Now I don't want you to think." Like she takes her hands off the wheel, totally looks at us, and like that stuff gave me so much anxiety that I was like, "Oh yeah, she's breaking the fourth wall, so this is cool." Um, and but she's like, "I don't want you guys to think about the show as being like every week. There's a cameo." And she's like, "Well, wait, there's Bruce, Blonsky, Wong. I don't want you to forget about whose show this is." I love it. I love it. I love it so much. Then we get the news montage of like She-Hulk and like headlines, the controversy of representing like the Abomination, all of her like trendy nicknames like the Big Green Woman and all of that stuff. And then we get like the one dude being like, they took the Hulk's manlyhood and gave it to a woman, and it's just like, oh my god, oh my god, Jesus. It's like people like that are idiots. People like that are idiots. So yeah, that's all I have to say on that. And like, got the one dude saying like, I'd smash, and like the other dude just being like, why don't you just make your own superheroes? It's like, to be fair, things like why don't you make your own superhero and stuff, like if Jen Walters was giving her side of the story, maybe things like that may not happen because she was truly caused by an accident. It's not like she was like, hey, Bruce, cuz, buddy, shoot me up with that blood of yours so can become a She-Hulk. No, she just like being a lawyer, just doing her stuff at the DA's office and stuff, and trying to make, a world a better place that way. So yeah, all of that is awesome, and then we also get like the lawyer Gideon, who put the Abomination originally like behind bars and everything like that. So that was really cool to see all of that. And then we're back at Jen's office with Nikki. Jen's like, people deserve due process, even Emil Blonsky. Like, he says that this guy Wong, like took him out against his will, but he wanted to go back in there and he came back, and like he's saying that he chooses not to turn into the Abomination and stuff. So like, but then Nikki brings up a good point. Like, they get summoned by Holloway, and she's like, like there wouldn't be these issues of people talking about this stuff about you if you actually went on like Good Morning LA and gave an interview and like told your side of the story. We get to Holloway's office, and Dennis is there. That tool. Oh God, he's the worst. And so Pug is taking Dennis's case and it's why, and they're like, why is it in the Superhuman Law Division? And he and he's like, yeah, he was scammed out of money and goods by a light elf from Asgard who was impersonating Megan the Stallion. Hilarious. All of this. They try and bring in another female lawyer from the Superhuman Law Division, and he's like, no, I can't have Dennis, the terrible person that he is, no, I can't have a 10 working on my case talking about man stuff. And like, oh my God, oh, you are the worst, Dennis, you suck. But he gets his later, and let me tell you, it's hilarious and awesome. So after all that, Dennis is just like, hey, Pug, him, he looks good. Is he a lawyer? I'll take him. So Pug takes the case. He's also in the Superhuman Law Division, as we saw in like episode 1 when he introduces himself with the welcome basket and the map to the best bathroom to poop, and which is still awesome, hilarious. But in Holloway's office, Wong appears. And when Wong appears, he's like, Miss Walters, I got your communications. I am Wong, Sorcerer Supreme of the Mystic Arts and former librarian of Nepal. How may I help you? Then they move back to Jen's office, and she does the like interview with Wong, and and like it is so awesome because like Wong has his statement prepared to a freaking T. And it's so good. He just has his statement to a T. He's like, yep, no, I took Blonsky out of his cell because I needed a worthy opponent on my challenge and way to become the Sorcerer Supreme, and that was he was a worthy opponent, the Abomination was. So I broke him out of his cell against his will, and then after he did me that favor, I gave him the opportunity to live in a faraway place, like free from all of this and not having to go back to his cell. He said he wanted to go back to his cell and serve out the rest of his sentence. And Jen Walters is like, well, hold on, like, I am not prosecuting him. Other people are. I need you to come to the hearing tomorrow and say that exactly. We need you to say that. We need you to say that. And Wong's like, okay, cool, I'll be there. And then we get I'll be there, and they also have an awesome conversation about erasing everyone's memories, which is another line of giving us an idea of where She-Hulk is placed, and where like Shang-Chi is placed in regards to No Way Home. And like he references erasing everyone's memories, or really what they did was erase everyone's memory of Peter Parker being Spider-Man. Sorry, spoilers for No Way Home. But if you haven't seen it now, sorry, it's out, it's available, you can buy it. Yeah, sorry, oh well. But so she's just like, show up at the hearing. That's great. They have the conversation about how erasing people's memory is very unethical and stuff, and you shouldn't do it. And then Wong's also like, oh, okay, I get it. Show up, say the speech, save the magic for Plan B. And she's like, please don't touch your nose like that. Please don't do that. I love it. We get the Pug and Dennis like conversation, and he's like, all right, so like what? Okay, damages. You paid off a mid-sized sedan for her, so let's just say I'm gonna give you a number. You say higher or lower, $50,000, and he's like, Dennis is like, higher. Okay. And they keep going up until he's like 100,000, 200,000, and Dennis is like, oh, what do you think I am, crazy? No, I'd say it's somewhere about 175. And it's just like, and Pug's response is amazing. 175,000 is a whole house in parts of the country. True. So freaking true. Dennis, scumbag, don't feel bad for you. But they continue their conversation. Ultimately, Pug is like, hey, I'm going to take your case. I've got to build it. And then he gets, like, Dennis walks out, and he, walks out of the office, and Pug is just there. And then, like, a minute or two goes by, and in comes Dennis again. And Dennis is like, hey, man, I thought about it. I decided I want to throw this whole case out. I want to forget about it. I'm just going to let her go. And, I kind of knew that she wasn't Megan Thee Stallion, and everything like that. And then Pug gets a call. And guess what? It's Dennis downstairs saying that his car just got towed. And he knows then that the person sitting in front of him is actually the light elf that Dennis is building the case against and are trying to sue and everything like that. And it's awesome because he's like, security. She walks out dressed as Pug now and says I love sexually harassing women and stuff. And he's like, don't you say that, get out of here, blah 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 blah. And she turns back into herself. Consider this a warning. Awesome. But Pug turns to the lady, to the other ladies, women working the in the office out there or whatever, and or in their parts and or in their portion of the office or whatever, and cubicles, whatever. And he's like, me, I'm not like that. It's really funny because the dude who plays Pug was also the guy who played Adrian Chase from the Arrowverse and the Arrow TV show and stuff. So it's really funny seeing him play this completely different character. I wonder if he's gonna have a wild kind of change, a wild kind of change. But then we get the parole board hearing, which is pretty cool. This is great. We get the female reporter outside, saying that we're at the Abomination Parole Board hearing. We've got Jen Walters here. We get the, the male reporter being like, is it true that you were rejected from the Avengers? The female reporter jumps right on it and is like, it's rumored to be said that she was rejected by the Avengers. And it's just yeah, that's sometimes how stories and newsreels and all that stuff just goes around. It's wild. At the beginning of Emil Blonsky's parole board hearing, there is the addressing of Emil Blonsky's escape, which, because Wong isn't there, Jen Walters has to stall. And to be fair, it's sort of funny. I just the some of this is funny, some of this is just kind of meh, it was fine. But a lot of this parole board hearing stuff is really good. Like Blonsky talking about his like 7 soulmates and like where he's gonna live and like be on the farm and open a meditation center and all of this stuff. Like all of that stuff is like extremely funny and extremely great. Like I really love it, because especially when Jen Walters is like, yeah, well, these 7 soulmates have said that they are willing to, be financial stability for Emil Blonsky, upon his release. And I don't really think we need to go any more into that. And hilarious, hilarious. um, but then so we go through that. We also get other people in the prison saying that like Blonsky started a prison reading program. They're no longer making prison wine; they're making prison kabuka and stuff, and that he's just all around been a pretty decent human being while in prison and stuff, and like he for all intents and purposes, seems to be reformed. And the only thing that kind of seems to be hanging over his head now for it is the prison escape, the elephant in the room, if you will. And that's basically where we're at now in this whole talking of like the parole board hearing. They're like, it's still a matter of the escape. Like, that's great that he did the reading program. He helped this other prison guard with his wife, but there's still a matter of the escape. And then Wong finally shows up. He finally shows up. And Wong shows up, gives the awesome statement again of saying that, like, I broke him out, gave him the chance to, broke him out. I needed a worthy opponent on my way to becoming Sorcerer Supreme. And in his, like, while I had him, I gave him the chance to just go live with, like, me and whatnot, and, be free and not come back to prison. But he wanted to serve out the rest of his sentence, because to society, because that's what, like, he's reformed. That's what he's supposed to do. Jen Walters obviously jumps on that and, says, like, see, this is against his will and all of that. And then we get the Kamite. I forget on how he says it. And they ask that, and it's like, it's just great. And one of the parole board, like one of the guys is like, and now Mr. Wong, you know that you just admitted to breaking Mr. Emil Blonsky out. That is a crime. And he's like, I have to depart. Opens up his portal and just leaves. Awesome. I love it. I just love it. And then we get a cut to to Dennis's trial during this. Like, we get I actually went through all of that prison stuff first, of the Wong statement. But in that, before we even get to the Wong statement, we get a cut to Dennis's trial, and it's not necessarily going super good. They decide not to dismiss. They decide to go to trial for Dennis versus the Light Elf. And during that, after that, the judge walks away. The Light Elf goes up, impersonates the judge, and says, you know what, actually, some new evidence has come to light, and I decided to dismiss. And, like, bangs her gavel and starts laughing. And everybody is just looking like Pug, Dennis, and even the Light Elf's lawyer is looking at her, looking at the empty seat, looking back up there. And the lawyer's like, you're impersonating a judge. That's breaking the law. Get down here right now. You can't do that. And it's so funny. But then we get a cut back to Wong. He's giving his statement. He's a man reformed. He's changed. Jen's closing statements. He could have, but didn't. He deserves a chance to, prove himself. They're gonna, we're gonna adjourn for today. The parole board hearing ends up saying, it's like, we're gonna adjourn for today. Let's get this dude. We Okay, so yeah, they say that they're gonna adjourn for the day, get the one lady parole board person is like, get this man some clothes, because the one thing is that they put him back in there after Wong's statement. They put him they after Wong's statement, Emil says, hey, let me prove it to you. He turns himself into the abomination. I kind of skipped that. He turned himself into the abomination, and then he turns himself back, rips all of his clothes get ripped off and stuff. Like, he moves his shoes over to the side. They're nice little Crocs, and yeah, they he turns himself into the abomination. He comes back. He's a reformed man. That's Jen's closing statements. Like, he's sorry for startling you, but like, he didn't change himself. Like, he could have at any point, but didn't. And so, like, he stayed here. And this even proves it even more, along with Wong's statement that he never really wanted to leave. He was forced to leave, and that he's actually a reformed person and deserves a chance at parole on here. They decide to adjourn for the day. Like I said, the one female parole board member is like, get that man some clothes. Then we also get the male one being like, you just admitted to a prison break, and Wong being like, I must depart. As he departs, then we get Jen Walters fixing the microphone. Then we go back to outside the prison. We get the reporters like, how are you going to take Blonsky down when he's down from another rampage? Like, how do you answer to like being one of his soulmates? And then the final one is, what about the idea that like your change came from a mafia hit? And you hear go, what? Awesome. I just love it so much. Then we're at the bar talk with like Nikki and Pug, and Nikki's like, hey, it's just, well, first Pug shows up after like coming back with like a drink or coming back from the bathroom or whatever, and so it's just Jen and Nikki at first, and they're all talking. And she's like, talk to Good Morning LA, get your story out there. And she's like, no, this will just all go away like once Blonsky's over and all this stuff. Like, it doesn't matter. Once that, it's done. And then Pug sits down and he's like, oh man, how did you guys deal with Dennis before? Oh my god, he's the worst. And Jen breaks the fourth wall again, like looking at us, like being like, connecting A and B storyline. Nice. And yeah, that's what they're doing, connecting A and B here. And they get like, how would you describe him? You guys worked with him like for a while. And Jen Walters is like, I would call him terminally deluded. And Nikki was like, I'd call him gross. And then Pug, like, it hits Pug. He turns to Jen. He was like, would you be willing to say that under oath? Then we get the Jen Walters testimony of we get the Jen Walters testimony in the in Dennis's case, and let me tell you, it's great. She's like, we worked in the DA's office for many years, worked regularly together on many cases. I would say that I know him well. What about like dating life, characterize, like, what about like, sharing life, characterizing dating, anything like that? Jen was like, he called himself a New York 10 and an LA 11. I have no idea what the hell that means, but I guess that's what Dennis thinks he is. She says that he is completely and totally delusional. That's right. The only one, like, is totally delusional, and that it's right that he would believe that he was dating Megan Thee Stallion. And then we get the court ruling. The Light Elf has to pay back the $175,000, and then we get a cut of Megan Thee Stallion in the I don't know, just in the seats there. Like, she's not part of the jury, but most courts are like open and you can come and go as you please for the most part. And so she's just sitting there and she's like, "Yep, that's right. There's only one Megan Thee Stallion." Oh man, it's awesome. It's awesome that they decided to pull her, and I like that's great that she decided to show up. That's so fun. It was just fun. I loved it. And then Dennis walking out, still completely delusional. Jen completely proving the point of like what she said up there, and he's like, "Hey, that's the real Meg Thee Stallion. You think I really have a chance with her?" Dennis. You're the worst, man. You're the worst. And then, but to be fair, Dennis does make a point that Jen and nobody else should really give him credit for. And that's he wishes that he could take like her powers away, like or whatever. And then we get the prison verdict. The everyone shows up for the parole. They said, "Hey, you know what? His parole's granted. There's some conditions. He's got to wear an inhibitor. He's never to change ever again into the abomination." It's great. Jen Walters win. Emil Blonsky gets his parole with his 7 soulmates, and they're giving him a chance. He's got to wear probably that same kind of inhibitor, because that's kind of like when Dennis the night before was like, take away the powers. Well, that's the idea, is that she knows that Bruce was able to make one of those inhibitors, so they should be able to do it again at some point, and be able to adjust it for the abomination, despite Emil Blonsky having complete control over when he changes and when he doesn't change, unlike Bruce, who has to always be kind of combined with that. He can either be just Bruce or just the Hulk, but like he can't necessarily change between, and the only way to blend them is to be like that smart Hulk kind of thing that he was doing. And so like that's really interesting, seeing the different ways that these different Hulks or Hulk, spin-offs or whatever, all have different powers with virtually the same kind of stuff and whatnot. Yeah. And but Blonsky tells, Jen a good piece of advice. Everyone, they're going to write a story either way, so why don't you be a part of it? Like, they're going to write a story either way about you. So if they're going to write a story about you, why not be a part of it and, have something to say then, like, that way for it? And for whatever reason, Jen's like, that got through to her. And then we get the Jen Walters interview, which is really excellent. I love the interview, and it's like, I'm Jen Walters, not She-Hulk. My client is Emil Blonsky, not the Abomination. So how'd you come up with the name She-Hulk? Well, I didn't. Some random dude on the news, after thinking about it for about 2 seconds, did. And then the news anchor's like, all right, and then after this break, we'll be back with She-Hulk with her diet and exercise tips. And again, we get a, sorry, what? thing. Like, she didn't know that was going to be part of what they're asking her next. So that was really funny. Then we get the true basic, like, end of this episode here. Is she's walking down, like, I don't know, basically like an alley to her apartment, maybe, kind of thing. And we get a mugging going on here, and she's like, and then she's like, oh, wait. And she turns herself into She-Hulk, which is awesome. And she's like, get off me, and starts tossing him around. And like the one guy's like, if you're gonna strut around here showing off your powers, you better be able to back it up. And she's like, what? When have I been strutting around showing my powers? What are you talking about? Did you rob an Asgardian construction worker? Yeah. So like once she's in there, one dude comes at her with a needle, which was like interesting. So yeah, the one dude comes at her with a needle. She-Hulk beats them. They run. They get back to, like, she doesn't kill him because she's not evil. But she beats them up, and like they're all probably battered and bruised. and rightfully so. That's what you get for trying to, take on She-Hulk. Don't do that. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad for you. It's not gonna end up well. But then we get the conversation like, "Hey, did you get it?" And he shows the needle, and he's like, "No." Once she turned into that green, like once that green skin is too impenetrable, so I was not able to get it. Oh man, the boss is gonna be mad. Question here. So, okay. We know that Hulk is off planet, so other people who could have always been looking for Hulk could know that he's off planet as well. Because if they then were following Hulk and then got caught on to Jen, they probably could have seen that Sicarian ship. Oddly enough, because the dude who plays Pug, I think he could be a bad guy, like hiding in disguise, like twirling that mustache. He doesn't really have a mustache, but he could be a bad guy just because he played a bad guy before, Adrian Chase, and he was like really good at it. So like I think he could do a switch like that. It would also be cool to just see him like play like a good lawyer friend to like Jen and Nikki and stuff. So, but clearly now we're getting into something here. We do know that the Thunderbolts movie is happening. So, I wonder if, like, trying to get Hulk's blood, trying to make a Red Hulk, or something like that is coming down the pipeline, and we're going to see some stuff like that in Thunderbolts. Could be, maybe. It'll be interesting to see what we get here. But basically here, that after that, like, the boss is going to be mad. They were trying to get her blood. Like, they show the broken needle and stuff. The episode ends. We start getting the credits rolling and everything. So it's interesting questions. It's like we knew the American government, because here's the thing. Whether you like The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton or not, it is still part of the MCU. They still connect to it. They literally talked about it in like episode 1, saying that like Bruce was like literally a different person before. And I really like that movie, actually. I still like The Incredible Hulk. I found that to be a fun movie. I liked it. I wish we would get like more Hulk, just like standalone stuff, but like I think Universal still somehow owns some of those rights, and not fully. I don't think it's fully back at Marvel. That's why he shows up as like a side character, or like a second character, or like a second lead, basically, in a lot of movies. But yeah, so She-Hulk, beats these guys up. It's the end of the episode. Then we get the mid-credit scene. And the mid-credit scene is absolutely hilarious to me. I found it so funny. I was just laughing so hard. And it is just so funny. Like, they're just clearly having a blast with it. Like, they are just trying to have fun in a show that I have found to be fun and funny and great. And like, I've really loved the whole like feel and balance of the show from top to bottom. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So like, this here is awesome. They're just having a blast with it. They're just loving like life and loving the opportunity to like play together and stuff, and it's just great. It's like, like, all right, sign here, initial here, sign here, initial here, and then they're listening to like music, kind of like dancing and stuff after signing everything. And Meg the Stallion's like, "You were way more fun than my last lawyer," and like as they're like dancing, and like they were dancing and twerking, and she's like, Meg the Stallion says like, "You were way more fun than my last lawyer." And She-Hulk turns around and is like, "I will kill for you, Meg the Stallion." And it's funny because like they like deepen her voice a little bit there than like She-Hulk normally is, to kind of show like the intensity or whatever of it, and it's hilarious. And Meg the Stallion just being like, "Whoa, dial it back." Awesome, hilarious. I loved every little bit of it. I really love She-Hulk. And, I'm going to wrap it up for today. This is episode 3 of She-Hulk, The People versus Emil Blonsky. I want to thank you all for joining me here at the Triple C Collective and on Superhero Saturday. I hope you all stay safe.